Brockton's Celestial Forge by Lord Roustabout. Chapter 3, Part 6. When we left off, the MC had just survived 6 different grenades going off in his face simultaneously through a protective alchemy and granted defense through his powers. At this point, I was ready to break out the dark alchemy and reduce the bastard to a puddle of smoking flesh, while I held back. I'd been playing this stupid, and it was time to level the field. In the smoking critter, I pulled a prepared formula consisting of a piece of wax and 2 measures of water, held in a small pouch together. I saw the shadow of Oni Lee approaching through the smoke, and mashed together my speed formula as I lunged towards him. This was one of my stronger enhancement formulas, and one I would have preferred to field test before using. It did allow faster movement, but only slightly, mostly accelerated perception and reaction. It was essentially a bullet time formula. At my level of proficiency, it wasn't quite enough to dodge bullets, but it provided an overwhelming advantage against a normal human, regardless of the difference in skill. O'Neill's skill level was still damn impressive. Probably the only reason I didn't end the fight in one swing was his reaction that turned with my strike, resulting in a spiderweb of cracking across his mask, rather than the concussion I'd been going for. I ignored the only Lee in front of me as another appeared to my right. My baton came around and swiped a knife out of his hand, then continued past to glance off the chest of another copy. 2 more appeared within a fraction of a second of each other. I ignored their attacks, instead spinning and bringing my weapon towards the empty street behind me. My precaution paid off as the form of Oni Lee flickered into being with a silver and a red orb in one hand. I brought my club down onto his forearm with all my strength. The light composite of his wrist guard folded under the heavy impact of my solid steel club. I felt a pair of snaps as the glove connected with all its force and watched in slow motion as the assassin's lower arm flopped, like a strand of overcooked spaghetti. The metal object fell from his useless fingers, and one by one the copies collapsed into dust, till even the version of Lee that was cradling his broken arm disappeared. My speed boost wore off, and time resumed its normal pace. I was panting hard enough that the bandana around my neck was flaring with every breath, and my body felt like a giant bruise. The surge of adrenaline that had carried me through the end of the fight was crossing, and every bit of pain, exhaustion, and overexertion was coming to the forefront. My attention was drawn to the sound of a slow clap in the direction of a dark alley. The ominous black clouds had faded, revealing 3 monstrous creatures of bone and meat, pacing back and forth. The clap was coming from one of the riders, a young man in Ren Fair clothes with a stylized mask and a small crown. Nicely fucking done. You really brooded your way through that fight. He was wearing a slightly sarcastic smirk, but there was a cautious edge to it. 10 out of 10, full points. Not a brute. A blonde girl in a purple and black outfit with a domino mask chimed in. More a tinker really. He buffs himself to fight. One of the last 2 riders, a guy in motorcycle leathers and a skull helmet, cleared his throat. We appreciate the help. Oni Lee is a serious threat and he really helped us out there. There were clouds of darkness leaking around the seams of his helmet, and his voice held a strange, echoey resonance. There was a growl from the last rider, a muscular girl with a cheap dog mask. Her growl was echoed by the 3 monsters. We could have taken them. Maybe, the guy in the biker leathers clarified, but we still appreciate the help. I continued to stare at the 4 capes. The reason I hadn't replied wasn't because I recognized them as Undersiders. A smash and grab villain team so minor I hadn't even bothered to research them since getting my powers. It wasn't because I was swearing up for another fight. It wasn't because of the exhaustion I was feeling. It was because my passenger was basically going nuts. The emotional link I have with my passenger is complicated. It's always there, but unless I'm dealing with something like cape related, it tends to be fairly muted. Cape responses vary considerably, but generally villains trigger some kind of negative emotion. That was most certainly not the case here. The reaction I was getting were complicated and a lot more nuanced than anything I'd picked up before. Most of the feeling was sympathetic, though in different ways for each understudy. As I swept my gaze across the four of them, I felt spikes of compassion, amusement, admiration, respect, and small levels of caution. Before I could respond or try and parse the information I was getting, the girl in purple spoke up. Rue, we need to leave. Her face was ashen. Did I tell? He glanced around as if looking for a threat. Fall back. We need to move out now. His body language seemed confused. She spoke again, her voice taking on a desperate edge. He's reading us. The biker, Rue, went stock still for a second, then snapped up both of his arms and let out a rolling wave of black mist. As it flowed over me, I could hear the sounds of creatures scrabbling over the pavement, but the noise was delayed and sourceless. The cloud of darkness was pitch black and had a murky feel to it. It also didn't seem to be dispersing any time soon. I'm gonna have to stop off there. Thanks for listening.